probably the motivator of more things than most of us could even think of.
There is genius in Dennis, okay? And I love him and his family dearly.
We first met Dennis, he bought a Landsmont machine. Well, I think Dennis was really our entry point into that whole IBM market, which for a number of years there really sustained Landsmont, you know, because virtually all of the domestic IBM manufacturing facilities have Landsmont testing equipment. And then there was the ESVF, and that led to fixed installations in Europe, and just on and on. And I think Dennis was the entry point into that. So he started out as a customer, you know. And then when we brought him on in the Lansing operation, I mean, it never would have been anything without Dennis.
Dennis had a really good way of, in my opinion, making something very technical seem very simple. Technical knowledge through the roof, really foundational, again, with ISTA, and really, you know, I think when ISTA really started to grow and expand its community through its testing standards, obviously Dennis was really at the heart of a lot of that.
So many people have had their career affected by Dennis being in the industry. Through either knowing him, working with him, being taught by him. He is a really great thinker. I mean, I still see him, you know, smoking a pipe and a beer, contemplating it, you know, instead of just jumping back at you with, you know, rebuttal or something. He would stop and get this very scholarly, professorial look on his face and kind of puff the pipe a few times, and then either agree or disagree or come up with something entirely different.
Dennis never takes anything at face value. He always digs behind it. He always looks at something from all different angles. And I always admire him for doing that. He picks one out to tell you about, but that simply means he's done all the others as well.
Dennis Young, dear friend, extremely, devoted to the industry. And, he ended up teaching at Michigan State. And also I taught with him at RIT when I was at Kodak. He would come out there and teach in the summer sometimes. And Dennis loved students, loved to impart his knowledge onto other people. And he was very good at it. He was a storyteller. And so we have been great friends all this time. And I can't be more proud of somebody than Dennis, because he's been able to really promote the industry and never got the credit I think that he should have had. But anyway, he's been very successful in the business, and I love the guy.
I transferred into Michigan State as a junior in college. I didn't know much about it. I said, okay, I'm good. Let's go down and make a visit to Michigan State, and we'll meet with somebody there. And the person I met with at the time was Dennis Young. He was an advisor at that time. And so, that was my first, quite frankly, experience with packaging, which was at Michigan State University at that time. And he convinced me to, kind of really close the door on, all right, I'm going to do this. And so he was my student advisor that got me into this program. And by the time I graduated from Michigan State in 1989 and started with Landsmont, Dennis actually then was working for Landsmont, and I worked for Dennis. So not only was he my advisor at Michigan State University to get me into packaging, but I worked for him for 3 years. And even during that time, he wasn't like working for someone, it was more working with someone, and he was a teacher. And it was more of, again, teaching by example or sharing by example versus teaching as I know better than you kind of a person. We in this world, or kind of the testing world, a lot of it is the example is through testing. It's real stuff. It's like, hey, let me go show you. Don't just look at this paper, this drawing, or listen to what I'm saying. Let me go out in the lab and show you, and that's proof. And so I think he really it was great to start my career with Dennis, with working in a lab environment, but we also worked a lot out in the field. He taught me how to do measurement projects, how to go out and do these measurement projects with instrumentation where you're putting them, attaching them to vehicles, crates, containers, inside packages. Not only how to do it, but then how to look at that data, make sense of it, and come up with, because doing it is one thing, but getting the data out of those and then saying, because of this information, go do this. He was the first person that really taught me how to think that way and to do it, quite frankly, not just to think that way, but to do it and actually press the button, on whichever piece of equipment it was, which, sometimes can be intimidating to say, okay, I did all this measurement and now I'm gonna test your thing, whatever that may be, and it could be a very expensive thing that's fragile, and I'm gonna hit this button and hope that something good happens versus something bad, and he taught me to be confident in that type of a process right from early parts of my career, and I really am thankful for that.
Very dedicated to education. He has this propensity for teaching others, and a higher calling would be hard to imagine. And I suspect his career could have been huge and blossoming and probably more economically feasible, things like that, had he not had this propensity for education. And more power to him. There's a lot of people, and I think society in general are just so much better off because of who he is and what he did.
I've had so many good times with Dennis and Ed together. It seems like the three of us very often. They were running a test lab in Lansing, and early days of Lansma. And I worked for Tenneco and used this polyurethane foam, and we didn't have a lab or anything, so we were constantly trying to get testing done for mil-spec requirements or whatever. And there were a couple times I would call them from New York and say, look, I need some data, And, okay, fine, when can you be here? I said, well, I got a flight out at 4 o'clock, I'll be there at 6. And show up with foam, a box of foam, a case of beer, and my insistence we get this done before we go to bed.
He's the greatest presenter of material that I've ever seen. He can take a very complex thing and boil it down into terms that people can understand. I've never been at a presentation that he gave that I wasn't amazed at.
I don't know if you've ever seen him teach or been a student of his, but he's amazing. He can, first of all, he's witty and he's funny, so people like him right away. There's like, oh, I want to be around this guy. But also, you get somebody who just doesn't understand. You're trying to explain something, and you can tell they're not getting it. And so you try to explain it to them more slowly or something. Dennis has this technique. He can explain the same subject in a totally different way. It's like, okay, you don't get the shoelace analogy, so now I'm going to go with the space travel analogy or whatever it is, He's just incredible the way he can teach stuff. And I bet, now I've never sat in on his university classes. It was always the industrial seminar kind of thing. But he's absolutely amazing.
Great sense of humor. He can probably pull off things in a presentation that none of us could ever do, but he does it.
He was a storyteller extraordinaire. And so, and that meant, one-on-one conversations. It meant technical presentations. He was, I would call it like must-see TV. He was must-see technical presentation. He set the bar, that everybody wanted to, you wanted to be there if Dennis was at that event and presenting, you didn't want to miss it because it was like, what's he going to do next? What's he going to do? What's he got up his sleeve? What's he going to tell you? And it was always great. He set the bar. When the technical presentations were done and you're sitting out on a patio at the conference, it might be an exhibitor reception or just the cocktail session afterwards where there's 50 tables and 300 people sitting around, the table with the biggest group around it is going to be Dennis Young's table. And why? It's because everyone wants to sit there and listen to the storyteller, the master storyteller, tell his stories. The less and less that some of those storytellers are at every one of these events everywhere you go, but it makes me, try to make up my own stories to be like Dennis.
And so much fun to be around. I mean, traveling with Dennis or doing something with Dennis where, you've got a goal, you got an objective that you have to reach. What better guy to do that with than Dennis? Have a blast doing it, end up doing a great job with somebody that you love. It's terrific.
Oh, Dennis. I've said before, he knows everything. Never been stumped. Been there all along. The dearest of friends.